Welcome, welcome, welcome. We are here live with Hat Chat number 24. Hat Chat number 24. Wow. Yeah, I can't believe it. Again, I know I keep repeating myself here, but again, every time I go on here live, I just can't help but just realize when I say the number that wow, this is getting up there in number, right? Like, before you know it, we'll be at number 50, and wow. I mean, we got 25 coming up right after this. Just big numbers that I didn't expect, for this lowly channel to reach so quickly. But yeah, I'm really glad that I have Ian. Hello, hello. Um, my faithful moderator from London, Ian Reed. Welcome. It's I was just remarking about like how quickly we've gotten to the 25 mark. Well, to 24 mark, but 25 will be the next one. Hopefully, if all goes well, tomorrow I can rattle off number 25 and the quarter century mark. That's nothing to sneeze at. Not to try to like toot my own horn, but that's all you guys, to be honest. You guys make it so fun that I just want to get out there and do the next one. Usually, right when I'm done with the stream, I'll go maybe go for another walk, get something to eat. You guys already know that I do a lot of fasting, so usually that's my routine. If you ever wonder about my what Luke's doing, like right after I end the stream, I kind of have a little bit of an adrenaline dump, and what happen is that I will go and either eat something right away because I'm usually famished by that time, right? So if I cut off my eating window at 8 p.m. the night before, I will be ready past noon. That's when I usually try to open up my next eating window, and I'm already starving. So there are two things. I'm either itching to go get some food and get some food in my system, or go out for another walk. Right. I usually go out for a morning walk, and then because of that adrenaline dump, I remember I mentioned before. I'm kind of like, without having been formally diagnosed, I probably a little bit ADHD. And then right now I'm kind of in that H factor, right? The hyperactivity. And usually to deal with that, I will go out for a walk. Usually my walks, I can actually, time my walk. Now I got it to like a half hour. If I get a solid half-hour walk in, it usually kind of calms my system and allows me to get, focus on the next thing I need to get focused on. So usually it's that thing, right? Once I say, stay hatting, my friend, and I'm away, I'm thinking about going for a walk, but mostly thinking about, putting some food in my system. So, I don't know if this is something that you guys are curious about, but, I decided to share anyway, because, well, that's what I'm here for. That's what we're here for, is to kind of share what's going on in our hat journey, maybe what's going on in our life journey, and with no judgment, and maybe a friendly ear. That way everybody here feels comfortable expressing themselves, right? That's what, I mentioned there, that I'm a big fan of Bruce Lee. And Bruce Lee had, well, besides being a studier of philosophy, he had this beautiful expression that the martial arts for him were the purest way and a very physical way to express oneself. And then obviously we know the whole Madonna song, and then the NWA song, Express Yourself. I think that keeps coming up in various walks of life because, like I mentioned yesterday when I was talking with Paul, is that everybody has a real need, right? We have that kind of like that innate need, and it varies, right? It varies from all of us, but we all kind of want to express ourselves in a very authentic, very real way. Because when we're not able to express ourselves in a very real and authentic way, then we get exhausted, right? It becomes exhausting, right? If you're out there and you're working a 9 to 5 job and you're wearing a 3-piece suit, and all you really want to do is wear a guayabera or wear a bowling shirt like this, it's going to be exhausting, right? You're just going to wait. You can't wait for it to turn 5 o'clock. And maybe you even sneak out early, right? I'm not going to begrudge you. I understand. You may just sneak out early because you just want to get that suit off, right? You're like, you're done playing the role of the corporate professional, and you just want to get out there and be comfortable, right? The first thing you do when you get home is just is you get out of that suit and put on some clothes that you know you're comfortable in. Maybe put on some music, or play some music that you love, and then just maybe grab a pint or that comfort food and just get back into like your happy place, right? And we all do jobs because it gives us the money to be able to do the things and enjoy the things that we love, right? Like our fine hats. So if you're out there and you're working a 9-to-5 job, you guys, one, you're a hero, right? Because not everybody can do that. We know, right? Besides the fact that not everybody can get a job these days, just holding a job is not for everybody. And I empathize if that's your situation. But we all go and we all do what we got to do. We make the sacrifices so that we can pay for our next dinner. Maybe if we make a little extra coin, we can buy dinner for somebody else, a loved one, and just put food on the table, and just, we do it as a means to kind of do and surround ourselves and with the things and the people that we enjoy the most, and we can get them the things that, if we have the little extra coin, we can get them that nice extra gift, right? But like I always mention, right? Like Mother Teresa once said, I believe it was Mother Teresa. She said, charity begins at home, right? You got to take care of yourself before you can worry about taking care of others. It's kind of like in the airplanes, right? When the airplanes give you those instructions that almost everybody doesn't listen to, right? If you listen to them, or if you just happen to pay attention every once in a while, like I do, you'll see that they instruct you when the mask comes down, right? In the event of an emergency, the mask will come down. Make sure that you secure your mask first, and then you secure the mask for the person, like your child, or the person next to you. And there's a good reason, right? I mean, I think it just makes perfect sense. It almost sounds a little selfish, but the idea there is that you can't help others if you don't help yourself first, right? If you're not in a position to help somebody else, right? So maybe you got that job and you killed it, right? We talked about the idea with Paul about like, you go and maybe you start off in a certain career, and then once you build up enough of a nest egg, you're able to move on to something else you really love. And I feel like that's where Paul is right now. That's where I'd like to be with this channel, to be honest. I'm just happen to be in a position where I work from home now. And even though it's the weekend and I'm not working today, it's actually the long weekend. So shout out to my folks in the US. We have Labor Day coming up on Monday. So a lot of us that work a 9-to-5, we have Monday off, and it's just an ironic holiday, right? It's kind of like, so wait a minute, it's called Labor Day, but you don't work. I mean, it just seems like one of those things. Like somebody in the boardroom that came up with Labor Day did not think through that. Like, oh yeah, everybody will not work on Labor Day. I'm like, maybe we should just call it non-Labor Day or something else. I don't know. It's just like one of those little mysteries. Like, George Carlin would like eat that up, right? George Carlin was great. Shout out to George Carlin, another great comedian / actor. You may know him as Rufus from Bill and Ted's Excellent Adventure, but he just happened to be a brilliant comedian, and not just a brilliant comedian. He was just a brilliant man. You could tell, right? When I was talking about Paul, and I said that Paul's got a lot going on, you could tell that he's a smart individual. It's something same with George Carlin. I don't know if you guys share a love of George Carlin, but George Carlin had he just had an ability to do a thing that I really respect, which is George Carlin had the ability to make the very complex into something very simple. And then conversely, he had the ability to turn the very simple into something very complex, right? And he happened to put a funny twist on it so that, the audiences would be laughing along. But you think about it, it's like, wow, this guy's really smart. Hey, Yankees Buddha. Hey, hello. Yankees Buddha. Not sure if I've seen you here before, but welcome. I don't recognize. I see Mount Rushmore on your icon. I love that. I love Mount Rushmore. I love the concept of Mount Rushmore. Right, Mount Rushmore has become a metaphor for like whatever your top four individuals or things that you value in life. Right. We talked about like the Mount. If we had a Mount Rushmore, like if Luke created a Mount Rushmore of hatters, right? I would definitely put, somewhere there, Ezra Mallory. We talked about Ezra Mallory yesterday, I believe. You definitely want to put John B. Stetson in there, right? John B. Stetson is really, really important. And you definitely want to include John Kavanaugh in there. And then, your fourth one, you guys can decide. There's so many great hatters. Maybe Zadok Benedict, who was like the very first hatter, right? So Mount Rushmore is kind of a very U.S. thing. Maybe you guys have something similar in the U.K., Ian. But we all have this idea and this concept of what is our top. Everybody talks about the top three or the top five. If you see a lot of YouTube videos, they were like the top five, the top 10, things of yada yada yada. So I always operate in the rules of three. That's just convenient from my personal standpoint. So if I had to do my top three U.S. hatters of all time, I would have to include in that order Ezra Mallory, because I always honor like the very first brand, and John B. Stetson and John Kavanaugh in there. There are others. There's obviously the two Charleses, Charles Knox and Charles Dobbs. There's also Robert D. Knox. No relation to Charles Knox, but he was the man behind Dunlap. I covered Dunlap here. Morgan said we made a pit stop at Burger King and now back on the road. Morgan, safe travels. Thank you for taking the time out to join the pod. Right, like the live stream. That's dedication. You are definitely one of my two faithful moderators. Hopefully you guys are having a great start to your weekend. Again, Morgan, I have no idea if you're traveling because you're trying to see family, or maybe it's related to the long Labor Day weekend. I know you mentioned that you're going to school. Hopefully you got Monday off as well. But definitely safe travels. I hope you have a fine hat on, or have you access to a fine hat if you don't have one on right now. But it's one of those things where we talked about that with Paul yesterday. Morgan says, I have to make up for lost time during the week. Oh, well, you don't have to, but I appreciate the sentiment. Morgan, you are always so respectful. A lot of our folks, that's again, one of the things that I always remark about our hat hobby. We're just full of like very respectful people. I don't know. And again, it's a chicken and egg thing. I don't know if just very respectful people gravitate towards hats or fine hats, or just fine hats make you a more respectful person. And obviously, the short answer that I'm going to say is it's both, right? It's an iterative process. You carry yourself with dignity, and you're like, you know what? I want to find a hat to kind of show that I'm a dignified person. And then when you put the hat on, you're like, holy cow, I want to be even more dignified and more respectful. And, and then it kind of, like I said, it is a feedback loop. And I feel like that's a thing I think that separates us out from a lot of other hobbies, right? Like I mentioned, a lot of the car collecting hobby, everybody knows there's a lot of like curmudgeonness and just like that mean-spiritedness when it comes to cars, right? Like Ford guys attacking Chevy guys, like you guys suck, and they're all like both attacking the Dodge guys, the Mopar guys. You'll see it in the watch community as well. Rolex guys, poo-pooing on anybody that doesn't have a Rolex. And then obviously you got your Patek Philippe guys. They're like, oh, your Rolex is trash. I wouldn't buy a Rolex if my life depended on it. So it goes to show you, like, you can be as mean as you want, right? Like I said, hats and your things don't make you a mean person, and money certainly doesn't make you a mean person. You either are a mean person that has a lot of money or not, but it just makes you a lot more what you are, right? So if you become a mean person and you have money, you just become a really rich, mean person, and you do really bad things with your money. But if you're a good person, right, you could do really good things with your money. You can give it to charity. You can help out friends and family. You can do a lot of things. You could, again, surround yourself like Jay Leno. I always think about Jay Leno, right? He's a car guy that made a lot of money in comedy. Obviously, he was a very successful late night talk show host, and he just happens to love cars, right? And he has a ridiculous collection, and now he has a YouTube channel, right? Now that he's kind of semi-retired and he's no longer doing comedy and the talk show, he's a YouTuber, and he has Jay Leno's Garage, and now he does, like, it's very much in the spirit. Like, my channel is very much in the spirit of that, but with hats, And again, I don't have as many hats as Jay Leno has cars. He's basically got a museum. And I got to imagine that, there's a lot of cost involved in that, but he does it because, well, he's just passionate about it, right? He just happens to be well off, and he's actually able to surround themselves with all the things that he loves. And you got to respect that, right? Jerry Seinfeld is very similar as well. The comedian Jerry Seinfeld, he happens to just stick around. So his collection is about Porsches. Regardless of how you feel about Porsche guys, Porsche owners, I do know that Porsche has a reputation of having like those uppity folk, right? I'm just gonna leave it at that. They like, whatever, forget your Ford and forget your Chevy. It's all about Porsche, and forget your BMW, right? Obviously a Kia. I have a little bowling shirt here. I bought this at a thrift shop. And, I like the bowling shirt look. I mentioned that before. And this just happens to belong to somebody that used to work at Kia. Apparently somebody named Chris, Chris with a K. Maybe it was a female worker. But, this just happens to be a very popular style for a lot of auto mechanics, right? And servicemen. Service workers that work at automobile shops. And what happens is they'll go and they'll quit their job, or they'll retire or whatnot, and they'll get rid of their shirt. Or maybe a family member will get rid of their shirt. So I'll go to a thrift store, and I just love it. As long as it's not too out there. Obviously, I'm not a big fan of logos, right? So again, no offense to Kia, and no offense to whatever this auto shop is. And obviously Chris. But I'm not somebody that really likes flashing a lot of logos. But I wear these kind of shirts besides that, despite that, not because of it. Basically the only thing I really like in terms of like logos and symbols, maybe a hat pin is okay. Obviously my pie chain is okay by me. Like, I don't mind flashing that logo. It's not really a logo in as much as it's kind of just a symbol, right? So if you ever wonder like, what the heck is the story behind the whole pie chain look, like, right? I feel like sometimes people ask me that. And I mentioned this before in a previous live stream, is that I always get like, the first thing they'll see like a hat like this. If I wear a black hat like this Stetson Downs that I'm wearing right now, if I go out, maybe if I wear a shirt that's a little bit more plain, the first thing I'll ask is, they'll ask me is like, are you Jewish? Some people are scared to ask me if I'm Jewish. I'm not Jewish. It just, this symbol, the pie symbol, just happens to look like the Hebrew, or the Hebrew symbol of Chai. And I believe Chai means peace. I believe Chai means peace. So my Jewish folk can correct me if I'm wrong. But it's not meant to be a Chai. It's meant to be a pi, as in the mathematical symbol. And again, I'm not a mathematician, right? Morgan says the Downs has a wider brim than I'm used to seeing in you. Yeah, it is. It's because I didn't really buy this hat. This hat was actually given to me by a loved one. And, essentially I was like, okay, this is not my style, but I'm going to, I try to wear all my hats. This hat doesn't get worn nearly as often, but, it's kind of a more modern Stetson. And I know a lot of folks don't like modern Stetson. They don't like modern anything. But I happen to think it's like I can pull it off. What I'll do is, you guys, I might have not mentioned this, but what I'll do is I try to pair an outfit. So like, if I have a shirt that has a little more bright color, maybe I'll pair it with like an all black hat, right? So that the shirt stands out. Ian says, suits you. Thank you, Ian. I appreciate that. You guys are way too nice to me, but I appreciate it. I'm like, it's not lost on me. You guys just happen to be really nice folks, and I'm glad to have you guys. One of the things that, in terms of my style, if I know that I have a very loud shirt, so like this red is very loud, I'll usually pair it with a less loud or more traditional hat. only because I don't like to have a lot of loudness, right? So we saw that Carmen Sandiego red D-Bar J hat, right? When I wear that, I almost always wear my plain black Guayabera, right? And I always have a pair of black slacks, mostly. Sometimes I'll have blue jeans, but mostly these days I'm wearing a very like relaxed jogger pants, right? So shout out to my folks that like the jogger pants. Jogger pants are really great because they look a little bit more formal. They don't look like they're like informal, but they're also comfortable, right? They have the elastic waistband. I'm almost 50, man. I got to be comfortable. I can't be out there in these tight, skinny jeans. Like I did that for a little bit because I do like the look. I like the fit, but they're just not comfortable to wear all day, every day. And I'm all about comfort right now. So yeah. And then yeah, back to the pi the pi symbol. I just think of the pi as the mathematical concept as just another way to kind of pay homage to the infinite, right? We all kind of know, if you guys are not mathematicians, I'm not. Pi is one of those concepts where it can be very simple, right? Well, pi, Luke, is 22 divided by 7, right? 22 over 7. But obviously, if you did that math and you try to get a decimal point, right, you get 3.14, yada, 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 and you'll go on and on, right? Pi is infinite, right? And I feel like sometimes the potential that we have as human beings is infinite, right? Obviously, Luke is not going to be able to dunk a basketball, at least not like anytime soon. I never could, so I'm going to assume that now at almost 50, I'm never going to ever dunk a basketball, and I probably will never play professional baseball for the New York Mets. But I can do something like start a YouTube channel and hang out with you guys and have you guys commiserate with me and chat with me. So for me, I feel like we know that nobody can do every single thing in the world, but if you can do something, you have infinite potential, right? There's a great movie called A Bronx Tale. It's considered a gangster movie, but it really isn't. If you haven't watched A Bronx Tale, it stars Chaz Palminteri and Robert De Niro. Great movie. If you're a fan of doo-wop music, like I am, like 50s US doo-wop music, you're gonna love A Bronx Tale because it's gonna start off with doo-wop. I have a feeling like Robert De Niro, in The Irishman, he also had some good doo-wop music. I feel like Robert De Niro, that doo-wop music is. I gotta think that Robert De Niro is a fan of doo-wop music because I feel like a lot of the movies, Sleepers is another movie that Robert De Niro has some good doo-wop music. That era, the 1950s, is widely considered a golden era, especially in the U.S. Ian mentioned that it was also in the UK, that post-World War II good times era. And I feel like Robert De Niro, despite what you may feel about him, right? I know a lot of people are anti-Robert De Niro for his political beliefs. Whatever. I don't get political on here. I like Robert De Niro, the actor. I don't care about his politics. I like his movies and I like his work, and even his comedy, right? If you guys see Meet the Parents, you kind of know what I mean. Meet the Parents, Analyze This, and the sequel, Analyze That. There's also a really good recent one that he did with a fellow comedian. Well, not a fellow comedian, but a comedian turned actor, Sebastian Maniscalco, right? And it's called About My Father. I believe you can find it on Netflix or Prime. I don't know, one of those streaming services. It's called About My Father. If you want to see Robert De Niro do comedy, kind of like he does in Meet the Parents, and Analyze This and Analyze That, you're gonna love that movie. I got a feeling if you don't love that movie, you at least won't hate it. So that's my recommendation. My man Ian is definitely somebody that really is a big fan of movies. And man, but back to A Bronx Tale. Bronx Tale is a great movie. And one of the sayings, right, that's related to pi is that one of the sayings that you get out of A Bronx Tale is, and that was Sonny, played by Chaz Palminteri. He said the worst thing. Oh no, sorry, it wasn't Sonny, right? It might have been his dad. It might have been his dad, Lorenzo, the bus driver, right? Those are the two protagonists there that were kind of influencing Calogero or C, right? The main protagonist in the movie. And essentially, I think it was his dad and maybe Sonny, maybe both of them said the worst thing in the world is wasted potential, right? And that's really hits home, right? We talked about like the idea of reaching, right, of infinite potential and reaching your potential. You don't want to do that. And there's never too late, right? It's never too late to fix this, right? I always wanted to start a YouTube channel here and then do this, but it just never got around to it, right? I was either working in a corporate job and I had to report to an office. I didn't have the energy level. I was doing something else. Something in my life was holding me back from doing this channel. And then luckily, I just moved. The stars aligned. I started going on my walks, and I just got home. And I said, you know what? Good Luke's. I'll put it out there. It doesn't mean it has to stay Good Luke's forever. I don't know. Maybe that was just a dumb name, but it was a good reason behind it, right? Good Luke's is it works on so many different levels, right? One is I just fashion myself a good guy, everybody, maybe I'm delusional that way, but I just feel like, okay, I think I'm a good guy. I like to spread good vibes. I like to smile, and I feel like that good I want that in there, right? And it's not great, Luke, right? I'm okay. I'm a pretty humble guy. I'm okay with just good. Ian says a chat for the future could be about films featuring classic hats, maybe with guests. I would love to do that. Love to do that. I've already talked about, right? I already posted, I shared some of the hat photos that I have here, and they're all like movie related, right? So if you didn't see that, and maybe I'll share photos of that in my old hat office. I still have photos of my old office where I was surrounded by all my hats. I had a hat wall, and I'll probably still get a hat wall eventually. Maybe at some point you'll see hats around here. But the thing is, I'm sitting down right now, and I usually like to hang my hats at like the 6 foot mark, right? That's just my brain. I feel like the 6 foot mark is a good height to hang my hat. I just made that up. I just don't know why, but now I'm compelled to do it. So if I do resurrect my hat wall here, I'll probably put it at the 6 foot level. So you may not see it on screen, but I have a rising desk. So if anybody wants to see my hat wall when I do finish it out, I will oblige you, and then I'll lift up my desk, and then maybe you guys can get a gander of my hat wall when it's up. But besides that, I already hung up my three hat photos, right? So if you guys didn't hear that before, right here to the right, right, I have the Rat Pack, right? It's a iconic scene in front of a pool table, right? You got it's from Robin and the Seven Hoods. If you haven't seen that movie, it's a great hat movie. Not so great like quality in terms of like the content, right? It was essentially kind of like a almost a little bit of a farce. But it's more of a gangster movie. It fashions itself a gangster movie. So it's Frank Sinatra and Dean Martin and Sammy Davis Jr. playing gangsters that were rivaling, and this is Chicago, right? Old time Chicago I believe in the 50s. No, not the 50s. It's the Prohibition era. So this is the 20s, I believe, the Roaring 20s. And in Chicago, and they're rivaling a rival gangster played by Peter Falk. If you don't know who Peter Falk is, he is the gentleman that played Columbo, right? Everybody kind of knows Peter Falk from Columbo. Shout out to Columbo. Shout out to Peter Falk. I believe he's passed. But that was a great show. Great detective show, Columbo. I believe that was in the 70s. But before that, he did Robin and the Seven Hoods, and he was kind of like the antagonist, if that makes sense, to the Rat Pack's protagonist. Ian says, I would worry about moths if I had them hanging on my wall. Mine are all in hat boxes. Great point. Ian, you know what I do is to combat that, Kevin actually already messaged me. Shout out to Kevin. Kevin came out with a great suggestion for how he handles moths. And then I do the same. Essentially what Kevin does and what I do now is I have a diffuser. And then what I do is I'll mix 2 essential oils. One is lavender, and the other is peppermint. And I don't know the magic behind it. Kevin said it works for him. So if it worked for Kevin, it worked for me. So far, even like any hats, I haven't gotten any new moth bites. If I have any moth bites on a hat, it came that way, right? You guys already know I buy my hats vintage. But if you're worried, if you always wanted a hat wall and you're worried about moths, I would recommend, without having, like, I've done this for a couple, as long as I've been a fine hat guy, and it hasn't failed me. I don't think I have any. I usually kind of always cycle through my hats, and I haven't noticed any new moth bites. So what you do is, again, if you missed it, you go and you get yourself a diffuser, any kind of diffuser. I have an old school one that just has like the little sticks, and then what I'll do is I'll go equal parts lavender and equal parts peppermint. And those are really widely available. You can go to Walmart or whatever. I don't know if you guys in the UK, Ian, in London, if you have Walmart, but wherever you guys, whatever your equivalent of Walmart is, Target or whatever that department store is in the UK, maybe it is Walmart. Walmart's a pretty big company. But yeah, you can go to Walmart and you can go and get those essential oils. They're not that pricey. I don't know what the price is off the top of my head, but you can also buy them on Amazon. So you might want to, maybe you start off with a little bit of bottles if you want to try it out and see how it works, right? Like see how it lives. You can buy 2 bottles, or if you really want to take a chance on it, you'll go and buy a big bottle, 2 big bottles, get yourself a diffuser of your choice, and then mix those and give it a try, and then report back and let me know if it works for you. Like I said, Kevin is a bastion of great knowledge. No Walmart, but similar shops. Yeah. So hopefully, Ian, they have that. If you're somebody that doesn't like shopping online, I know a lot of folks, even though Amazon exists and Alibaba and Temu and all those other online retailers, I know a lot of folks will still buy and support the local shops, and I'm okay with that. I still go out to Walmart when I can, but I also do a lot of Amazon. So I will go and I will order yourself up peppermint and lavender. I believe if you want it to stay a little longer, I think Kevin recommends if add a couple drops of rubbing alcohol, only for like staying power, right? So that it doesn't evaporate as quickly. I don't know. Like, I mean, for me, rubbing alcohol evaporates quickly already. Like, I don't know. Like when I heard that, I was like, wait a minute, rubbing alcohol is something that does evaporate quickly. But maybe when you mix it with essential oils, it preserves it. I don't know. That Kevin recommended that, but I didn't do that. I just do just pure lavender and pure peppermint, and I use a diffuser, a very standard. You guys know the thing, the diffuser. It's a little bottle, and it has little sticks running by it, and then the nice thing is, it smells really good. So if you have a trouble with odor, any kind of like dank odor, you never know. Like we live in houses that are a little bit older. Maybe our hat collection lives in a basement. And the nice thing is about that thing is, besides the fact that it works and it keeps the moss away, it smells really good. So maybe if you're somebody that brings home, you go out on a date, and you bring them home, a nice thing is that your home will smell a lot nicer, right? So if Ian goes out and picks up somebody, I don't know, Ian, you might be married and happily married. But I always go because you always talk about like picking up a fine woman in the lift, right? But if Ian goes out to the pub and some female catches his eye, he's like, you know what? I'm gonna go talk to her. And then and Ian brings her home and maybe cooks her a dinner, maybe has a wine. The house is gonna smell really good. So if Ian, if that's not you, but somebody else here, if that's them, then hopefully I gave you a nice little pro tip from a guy who's like almost 50. Ian's actually older than me, so Ian probably can tell me a few tips. But luckily I don't need it, at least not right now. I'm not out there picking up anybody. If I'm just gonna leave it at that. So yeah. That's a great question here. And then Ian adds, I have sticky pads that use pheromones to attract moths and eliminate. Wow, I've not heard of that strategy, Ian. But again, we all know that in our fine hats with our felts, moths are the enemy. It's just one of those things where we're like, all we try to do is manage that situation as best as we can. Luckily, I haven't really had, like, even before I got the diffuser, it's not like I had a super bad problem with moths. But in terms of prevention, right, that ounce of prevention is worth I don't know, whatever. The saying. Prevention is better. Being proactive is better than being reactive, right? So the best thing is to not have a moth problem to begin with. But like I said, we all kind of deal. Some of us rent. I know I rent. I don't own. I just have had that thing of, since I've lived in New York, and maybe it's the same out in the UK. It's so expensive. It's expensive in New York. It's expensive in the DC area, and I just find that I get more value by renting than I do owning. So it's not something to be ashamed of. I know a lot of folks are like, "Well, you're throwing away money on rent." I'm like, "Well, I don't know, to agree to disagree. For me, I try to find a reasonable place to live that has enough space for my things in a decent enough neighborhood. I just moved into a new neighborhood and I'm loving it. So I go for my walks out and I'm like kind of learning the lay of the land, and I'm doing so in my fine hat and, just meeting new people and introducing myself. Some people obviously not are more willing to engage than others, and that's okay. Again, I always get a look. What happened today? Somebody engaged me today, but I can't remember what they said. Oh yeah, I saw a gentleman today, on my walk that I haven't in my neighborhood that I haven't seen before. So the first thing I noticed is that he was wearing a hat, right? It was kind of like a bucket style hat. It was like a bucket style hat that actually folded over. It almost seemed like it had a brim. It was an interesting hat. But I didn't want to like go in there and start a convert like he looked like he was on his way to somewhere, right? This is Saturday morning. So okay, Ian says London is really pricey. Luckily, I paid off my drum years ago. Good on you, Ian. Shout out to all my folks that were able to get and pay off their pad. And I regret when I see the prices now. I kind of like, man, if only right? If only I bought, and maybe I will buy something, once my lease is up here. I think I want to buy something in this neighborhood. This neighborhood, it's treated me really well so far. We've only been here about, probably just under, actually, no, just over a month, right? Just over a month in this new neighborhood, and we have really great neighbors. My neighbor to the right happens to be from Nepal, which I've never been. They're from Nepal and they're really, really nice folks. And then my other neighbors to my left, we live like in a townhouse, and my other neighbor is a mother and son. I don't believe the dad. I saw a dad, but it's a mother and son, and they're from. She's from Guatemala, and I believe her son is half Guatemalan and half El Salvadoran. So shout out to Guatemala, shout out to El Salvador, and shout out to Nepal. We have a very diverse neighborhood here, and I just love it, right? Because you get a lot of those languages. It just reminds me of New York in that respect, right? If anybody that's from New York, like Morgan, you go a place like Jackson Heights, Queens, and you will literally hear almost every language imaginable in Jackson Heights, Queens. It is like, even though New York itself is a melting pot, like Jackson Heights is like where everybody is. It just happens to be near a commercial center, the Queens Boulevard, right? Queens Boulevard. That's actually Kevin Gerber's part of the woods, right? He just happens to live a little bit further east in a place called Forest Hills. And I actually used to live there as well when I was living in New York. I lived in like the Regal Park, Forest Hills area. So shout out to Queens, Queens County. So we talked about like some great places. I'm originally from Brooklyn, AKA Kings County. So we have Brooklyn, Queens, and then you got the Long Island. It's basically all one island. Brooklyn is the very far west. And in the middle, you got Queens, and then you got Long Island. And then you got Queens, you got essentially Kings County, Queens County, and then you got Suffolk County and all the other counties that I can't really remember, Nassau County. So shout out to New York. I really love going back out there. I don't know if I ever want to live in New York again because I really love the DC metro area. Ian says 60 languages are commonly spoken in London. Yeah. See, I feel like if I go to London, I'm going to get New York vibes, right? I just feel like everybody always tells me, everybody that's more well-traveled than I am will always tell me that when I tell them I'm from New York, they're like, oh, I love New York. New York reminds me of, they'll say London, they'll say Berlin, they'll say a lot of the major cities in Europe. And obviously New York has a very Dutch, right? Very Dutch origin. Brooklyn, I believe, is Dutch for broken land. So that's a little tidbit in case you guys were ever wondering what this Brooklyn thing is about. But I believe if somebody corrects me, that's fine. You're always free to correct me. But Brooklyn is Dutch for broken land. So shout out to Brooklyn and all my Brooklyn folks, and just about everybody that joins here. Obviously, we got the UK represented with London. Paul is from the UK as well, out not too far from Ian. We got Cold Bones Lullabies, who's out in Sheffield. Again, Ian, I don't know how close Sheffield is to you, but Cold Bones Lullabies is a subscriber here. New Amsterdam. That's right. Even old New York was once New Amsterdam, right? Why'd they change it? I can't say. Maybe they just liked it better that way. I don't know. I think that's the lyrics. Great song. But yeah, Sheffield, Cold Bones Lullabies. Love your music. I'm not necessarily an expert on folk music. We know that Ian plays neo folk, but I do like the sound. Like I've gotten a little bit more appreciation of Bob Dylan, Simon and Garfunkel, and a lot of the artists along that ilk, because I'm starting to get, I guess maybe it's my old one. As I get older, I'm starting to feel like a little bit more of that folk music and that acoustic guitar. You guys, if you guys don't know, like my ancestry dates back to Puerto Rico, and then we have the acoustic guitar, the cuatro, right? The cuatro literally means four, and it's a 4-string guitar that's very, very well known in Puerto Rico, and it's essentially the instrument, right? We also have a lot of accordionists as well, but if I had to pick one instrument to signify Puerto Rico, it would be the cuatro, and then the accordion as well as the guajiro. It's kind of like I don't know how you call it. It's a instrument, a wooden instrument with essentially shaped like a like some sort of like a Oh, geez. It's kind of like a squash shaped, and it has ridges that you cut in, and then you scratch it, right? It's a very iconic sound. So those folks that know salsa music and know that Puerto Rican jibara music, it's called the guajiro. So iconic instruments, and just shout out to Puerto Rico. I'm gonna get out there again one day. Ian says, I have a mate in Sheffield. Cold Bones Lullabies were new to me. Thanks to you, Luke. I love them. Yeah, he's really great, right? And Ian, I'm probably making showing my ignorance, but Cold Bones Lullabies sounds very much like Bob Dylan to me, and I never got a chance to ask him. He actually messaged me to thank me for following him, and then I thanked him for subscribing to me, and I didn't get a chance to mention it, but he has that very Bob Dylan sound, like it, like he has that voice quality, and shout out to Cold Bones. I have no idea if you're listening to this now, or if you happen to listen later on. He does a lot of gigs out your way, Ian, and so yeah, I told him, I said, if you ever make your way out to the U.S., then drop me a line. I'd be happy to buy him a pint and show him around. And that goes for all you guys, right? If you guys happen to be in the DC area, and maybe you're friends with me on Facebook, and if not, you're able to become my friend on Facebook. I'm not really picky. Usually, what'll happen is if you have a chance, and you really want to kind of guarantee that I'm going to accept your friend request, wear a fine hat in your profile photo, right? Not everybody does. Like Ian doesn't have. I think Ian has a gnome, right? In your profile photo, but I knew Ian already. I knew I was going to accept his friend request no matter what. And actually, I think I might have been the one that requested Ian first. Usually I'll do. It's like I'll give just as much as I take, right? So yeah, do that, because like I said, we're a small community. We're scattered all over the globe, and but now thanks to extra coin and technology, we're able to travel. And besides being able to travel, we can actually jump on a video call easily. To avoid fans. Yeah, I mean, you know what? I don't know. basically, it's one of those things where it's like, I think like when you're doing gigs and you're not selling out a stadium, you kind of are, you watch your money, right? You're in a new place, and you really want to make sure that where's a good place to stay at. And I don't pretend to be an expert in all the hotels in the DC metro area. But yeah, you know what? Sometimes I'll offer up my place, right? Like I said, if it's something where like you need a place to stay and money's a little tight, maybe that promoter promised you an advance payment and then started reneging on you. I know it happens. I really hope that's not happened to my musician friends. But I feel like if you're in business, right? The music business is just like any other business, right? You're a contractor and you go out and you come out and do a gig, and then you find out, right, later on that promoter or that owner, that pub owner or whatnot, told you they were going to give you X amount, and then they start giving you a little fish story. Or maybe they'll do like the Blues Brothers. They'll send you a bill, right? It's like, hey, you had no idea that all the booze that you were drinking is going to be charged, and they'll slap you with a bill, which is way more than what you have on your person. I'm like, I think that's unfair. I don't like that. If you're out there and you own a pub and you're doing that kind of stuff, or you own an establishment and you book a gig, especially for somebody that comes overseas, don't do that. Like you're really doing a disservice to everybody, right? You're making it so that musician never comes back to that city or your place, and your customers are going to pay for it, right? They're the ones that are going to miss out on really good music, and maybe having their favorite musician in their backyard. So yeah, just word of caution. Like maybe this means nothing to you, but if it means something, we have musicians here that are my subscribers, and I try to look out for them because it's just unfair. It's just a rude thing to do, I think. It's not fair to anybody. So I don't like that. That's not good. So good luck said so, for whatever that's worth. But yeah, thanks for rocking with me. I kind of went on like my soapbox here, which is I'm prone to do. But yeah, I had, like I mentioned, the hat of the day is the Stetson Downs. This is kind of a hat that was given to me by a loved one. And, it's really near and dear to me because, when I get a gift, I try to, I try to wear and appreciate it. But at the same time, it's one of those things where I'm like, whoever kind of does that, they kind of know that, I have a lot of hats in my collection, and, again, if you're ever interested in this hat, definitely drop me a line. I may not be able to sell it to you, but like I said, if you really want it bad, I'm always kind of like, I will always listen to an offer. And obviously that, my loved ones really understand. They kind of know that, I have a lot of hats, and, I'm touched when I get a gift. But they just want me they're just basically showing that, hey, I know you're going to appreciate this way more than I do. So yeah, that's that. We talked about that yesterday, about like not being scared of, right? If you're out there and you don't own a hat, and then you see a hat that maybe Luke is wearing, or somebody else is wearing on Fedora Lounge or on the Facebook groups, don't be afraid to shoot that person a message and say, hey, I love that hat. Where do you get it? And is that one for sale? The worst that could happen is that person says no, right? I'm actually touched when somebody does that, because one, it just shows that whatever I liked about the hat, that when I posted the photo, they also like it. Maybe they like it even more. So that kind of helps me to like say, like, okay, I start gauging, all right, this person is probably a better home for this hat. And then I will let it go, right? Like I said, I have way more hats than I need anyway. I just sometimes I'll go and hubris hits me, right? Hubris and that dopamine effect. I'll get that dopamine shot, and I'll hit the buy button. And then later on, I'm like, I probably didn't need that hat, And then I'm like, you may be doing me a favor by rehoming it for me. So anyway, the hat of the day is a Stetson Downs. We really didn't talk a lot about Stetson. Well, we have talked about Stetson, but I've never dedicated a show to Stetson. And I feel like I could right that wrong really easily right now. So obviously keep the comments coming, right? you know, you are free. I'm gonna just go and put in this Q&A here, right? That way, anybody that joins the stream, they know that they can always drop a comment, right? Don't be afraid. But if you also just want to lurk, right? If you just want to see Luke's show and you don't want to interact with me, that's fine. I'm okay with that. But you know, just so you know, it's like you are free to ask me questions. Maybe when I'm showing a slideshow, I may be a little bit, it might be a little harder for me to get your question answered, or I might not see it right away, but I will see it eventually, and I'll get it answered. You know, to the best of my ability, right? I'm no expert on anything. I'm kind of a jack of all trades, master of none. But even then, that's a stretch. You know, I'm like, I just know what I know. I'm an expert on my own opinion. The nice thing is that sometimes we got other hat folk here, like Ian. We got Morgan sometimes on here. And of course, we've seen Paul. I'll get Kevin on here, by the way. If anybody here that also subscribes to Kevin's channel, you know, we are in the works of trying to get him on. He's a busy man, as you might imagine. So he invited me on his show. I will definitely do that whenever he sends me that invite. I will go on his show, and maybe we can invite some folks here to join us from his channel, and then vice versa, right? I think Kevin will be a really good addition here. You know, he's influenced me so much already. His channel has, his Facebook groups have, his everything, his way of speak and his way of carrying himself has made a really big impression on me and has really inspired this channel. So I want to kind of return the favor, you know, and pay it forward, right? If anybody finds my channel before they find Kevin, if I can facilitate that connection, then I will. Kevin is just a great dude. Yeah. Yeah, Ian, you're spot on. Kevin is a great hat aficionado. He's very much a hatter, even though Kevin doesn't make his hats in his own by himself, kind of like Paul does. Kevin is also a hatter in his own right. You know, I consider him a hatter because he's, like I said, he was a salesman for like 30 plus years, I believe. So he's seen it from the salesman side, and that's every bit as important, right, as the hat maker, right? So you got the hat maker that will sell to a hat shop, and then you got to have a salesman that is out there where the rubber meets the road, right? They're out there interacting with the customer face to face, right, to sell them that Stetson, to sell them that Borsalino, to sell them that Celentino, and all the other fine hats that make their way into hat shops, right? So there's room in all of this for everybody, and we owe it to yourself to support your hat shops, right? Support your local hat shops. Morgan is a great example. I'm actually kind of a worse example. I haven't really gotten to a lot of hat shops. We have one here in the DC metro area that I'm aware of, technically two, but they're like really, one of them is kind of more geared towards church hats. I believe that's in the Alexandria area. I haven't met them, but I'm going to still visit them because I know they do sell men's hats. And maybe I'll go live. I don't know. I've never done a live show outside of my office here, but maybe I will do that because I know Kevin does it, and he does it very well. Yeah, Ian says, but he has great hats for sale. He knows his onions. Yes, he does. Anybody that has seen Kevin's content knows you may not agree with every single thing. Nobody agrees with every single, right? We got a lot of opinions, just like we got facts. And Kevin's has opinions. But I happen to agree with a lot of his opinions, to be honest. You had a great show that he did just recently that I commented on the idea of Crown Heights, right? We've been talking about Crown Heights, right? But not just the place in Brooklyn, right? There's a spot in a part of Brooklyn called Crown Heights. We're not talking about that Crown Heights. We're talking about the actual Crown Height, right? We have a lot of big fans of the High Crown. I just happen to out myself as, you know, as obviously a lover of more the lower crown, right? We know that that's a shift that occurred in the hat subculture, and the nice thing is that we have the ability to get these hats in a variety of crown. Like, you pretty much, if you have a certain hat style and a certain hat preference, you're probably going to be able to find it, right? And the nice thing is that we got folks that are creating new hat styles as we speak, right? We talked about like Brian Forbes, I believe that's his name, that I'm gonna mention the rocker style. So if you want to check out Brian Forbes, I believe he's on Facebook, and he might be on YouTube, for all I know. I've seen him on Facebook Paul knows him. He has like a very distinct high crown hat, but it's not like the high crown hats that you see like from Dillinger in that look. It is a style of hat that's kind of, I want to say, inspired by the Jamaican Rasta style, right? And I believe Brian Forbes has like I believe that's his ancestry, right, from Jamaica. Shout out to my folks from Jamaica. They definitely have a style of their own. And he has, I believe he calls it rocker style or rockers, right? I don't know if that's just his audience that he's referring to or his style. But yeah, shout out to Brian Forbes. I hope to get him on here one day to kind of share his the origin story of where, like, if he didn't originate it, where did he get that style influence from? Because I want to know, right? Even if I don't own a rocker style hi-hat, right? I want to know about it because, well, I'm a hat nerd. I'm a junior hat nerd, and I want to learn as much as I can. I think you already kind of got that flavor of kind of my style is I'm really big on learning, and I'm pretty big on teaching, right? I think the best way to learn something is to teach it. And I'm not trying to put myself on a pedestal here. Like I said, I'm not trying to. I think Paul has a heart of a teacher. He has a great presentation style. I just do it because, one, it helps me learn it and cement it in my mind. If I go and I show something that I get from like Fedora Lounge, a Facebook group, or Chat GPT, I retain it when I display it and I say it. So yeah, Ian says you need a big hat to cover dreads. Yes, you do. Yes, you do. That's why I'm thinking it's probably part of the function, right, of the rocker style, right? Assuming that I'm using the correct term, the rocker style with the high crown and that kind of that wrap. It sounds like it's very functional for dreadlocks. Now, again, I don't know because I'm not an expert, but hopefully we can get, if you know Brian Forbes or you happen to be a fellow fan of the rocker style, you are welcome here on Good Lukes. We're very open. It doesn't matter who's, you know what I mean? Like I said, I'm hoping that I can speak for everybody on this channel, that we're open to learning from each other, even if we don't like, right? Even if you don't like the stingy brim, hopefully you're able to see. I mean, I don't think this qualifies as a stingy brim. This is kind of more of like a 2 1/4, maybe 2 3/4 even. I don't know. I didn't measure this Stetson, but it's definitely bigger, a little bit more brim than you used to seeing on me. But I just felt inspired because I wanted to talk a little bit about Stetson. And I know Morgan's a fan of Stetson too. So, I showed a Stetson bowler from the 1930s. This happens to be a modern Stetson. Probably, I want to say, because Stetson's been producing hats like for quite a long time continuously. I mean, this is I don't know what year this hat's from. It's not vintage. At least I don't think it is. It's very much a modern Stetson, or at least more modern than you've seen. So yeah, it's a nice juxtaposition to show a vintage Stetson versus a more modern Stetson, because I know a lot of they're fans of both, and I wanted to celebrate them here. Ian says, Gregory Isaacs, a great reggae singer who wore lovely hats. Yes, he was. Yes. Shout out to Gregory Isaacs. Great musician and a great ambassador, like on the entertainment field for the for hats, right? So, I mean, for the most part here, I want to cultivate a way, right? We have some musicians on here, right? We talked about Ian as a neo-folk musician. We have Cold Bones Lullabies that sometimes pokes his head in here. I haven't gotten him to say anything here. Yeah, sadly, no more. Yeah, we've lost a lot of great musicians, just like we lost a lot of great actors and a lot of celebrities that really did. You could tell, right? We talked about Frank Sinatra. All these folks. Johnny Depp is currently still living, so that's great that we have an ambassador, right? So I try not to focus on the sadness part of, right? It's like that old adage that says, "Don't be sad because it's over. Be happy that it happened," right? So Gregory Isaacs, for as long as we had him, was a great ambassador. And the nice thing is that we still have current ambassadors that still alive, besides Paul, besides Kevin, and all the other great. They're probably many celebrities, to be honest. But we also have Johnny Depp. We got Nicolas Cage. And a variety of other folks that I'm like, I can't remember off the top of my head, but they are, putting it forward, right? I think Carlos Santana is another one. Shout out to Carlos Santana. Also a guy that rocks a really great hat, and is still around and still touring. Shout out to Carlos Santana, great sound, iconic musician, and it happens to still be around and putting it out for the hat culture. I'm probably forgetting a lot others, but you guys know what I mean. They're out there. I think Blues Traveler was another one that had the iconic hat. Was a hat guy, and obviously all my country folk music, my country musicians, which are obviously the Western style, not my style, but the Western style is definitely big in country music. You see some really great hats, probably a lot of Stetsons, to be honest, and Resistol, right? I will cover Resistol here as well. It's on my checklist. If you're like, hey Luke, where's the Resistol love here? You will get it because I got a Resistol. I think, well, I have at least one Resistol. I don't know. I'm forgetful. But let me get into the slideshow here. Again, feel free to keep rattling off comments and questions. I just want to just go into a little bit of that of my presentation here. Again, it's one of those things where I'm still new to this. I keep mentioning that, but I will continue mentioning that. Ska Cubano might speak to your heritage, Luke. I will look him up, Ian. I'm not familiar with Ska Cubano, but I am familiar with a group called Orishas. And Orishas is probably they got. I don't think they're synonymous with the with hats, but they are kind of an iconic Cuban-based group. But they're based out of Paris. They're based out of Paris, and they are hip hop musicians. And they have kind of like that Afro Latino sound that So Ian, thanks for the recommendation. I will check out Ska Cubano. I do love ska music and I love Cuban music. Shout out to my Cubans and the salsa origins, right? So if you know salsa music, you know that the sound originated in Cuba in the Afro-Cuban style of music, and obviously that has a tie to Africa. So that's why I'm like saying we're all connected here, right? The Santeria gods, yes. Shout out to my Santeria. Like I said, I don't happen to, I don't get religious. I'm not a religious person. Obviously, we got Santeria, and then you have, just that whole like kind of like a voodoo kind of. It's almost a little bit like, so Santeria would be like essentially very similar to voodoo. Yeah, it's a formal religion. Hector Lavoe is a famous salsa musician that did Aguanile, which was very much a Santeria inspired song. It's a very popular song. So if you don't know Hector Lavoe, right? If you're a fan of like musicians like Mark Anthony, shout out to Mark Anthony. Love his music. He's a contemporary salsa icon. But before Mark Anthony played Hector Lavoe in a movie called El Cantante. Hector Lavoe was an icon in salsa music. He was known for his improvisational style. So he would be very much like a hip hop musician where he would like sing and he would like he wouldn't have a set amount of lyrics, right? So he would go and just make up the lyrics and the fans will love it, right? There is that tradition in Puerto Rico of like the freestyling. I call it freestyling, right? Because that's borrowed from like the hip hop freestyling, and it's very beautiful. Hector Lavoe just happened to be a master in it, and unfortunately, we lost him as well in the 80s. Live and let live is my motto. That's a very good motto, Ian. I'm also the same way. As long as you're not bothering your fellow man, I got no problem with it, right? Like I'm like, you do you, right? That's what the kids say. You do you. You do you, and I'll do me, and hopefully we can coexist peacefully. Because, like I said, I'm a big believer in personal freedom, especially when it comes to like personal expression. Again, as long as it's not in the thing where like you're kind of trying to put your beliefs and shove them down somebody's throat. Because I just don't think, like, to be honest, I just don't think it's gonna work very well. It's for me, I just feel like there's some things like religion and with like political beliefs that you're not going to convince somebody, right? So what do you hope to accomplish with that, right? You're not going to take a hardcore Democrat and make them a Republican, just like you're not going to take a hardcore Republican and make them a Democrat. So why you waste your breath, right? It's like kind of like just agree to disagree And then like Ian says, live and let live, because like I said, life's too short to be bickering, right? I feel like Bob Marley was an ambassador for that. He's like, you know what? It's kind of like just be happy and love each other, right? Shout out to my hippies, and my current and my former hippies. That is a message that no matter how you feel about hippies, that it was a beautiful thing. That we just love is the most powerful thing you can do, right? Instead of downing each other, why don't we just love each other? And and I don't know, even if you don't want to hug it out with anybody, you can at least leave them alone, right? It's like we don't need to get into that whole. And again, I don't want to get on a soapbox, because not everybody wants, not everybody's here for that. But I also want to spread a message of positivity and of inclusivity, because again, it's just so much divisiveness out in the world, and I feel like we're trying to come here. Like I said, we come here. Part of Good Lukes is having good vibes, and that good spirit, right? I have no idea why my slideshow is not working, but let me see if I can get my slideshow working here. Your browser has blocked your screen. Let's see if I can see if I can continue getting here the the slideshow. If the slideshow doesn't end up working, I'm okay with that. I just I'm not used to having this fight me so much, right? Maybe it wasn't meant to be. Maybe it's I'm meant to show this at another time. But let's see. I'll keep trying, because I'm a little persistent. So bear with me. I'm gonna get that slideshow up, and hopefully share these slides, because it's fighting me. Why? Why are you fighting me? Yeah, I don't know why it's fighting me. Let's see. Share window, share. Why are you fighting me? Yeah, I don't know. I don't know why. This is actually the first time in a long time that like I've just had this thing just not wanna work. Uh, pardon my toiling here, but I'll give it one more try, and if it doesn't work, then I'll just save the slides for another day. It's just become part of my show, and well, we'll find out. We'll find out if this works. Um, let's see. Let's see. I'm gonna do share. I don't know if this is a StreamYard thing as well. It could be. Um, oh, wait a minute. I might have it. I think I might have it. Let's see if I am. Yes. Score one for persistency. Yes. So I got it up. Yeah. I'm not gonna make a dirty joke out of that. But you guys can use your imagination. So hopefully you guys are seeing this. Again, I have the Q&A up. You guys are free to ask any questions here. I just kind of start this off always, with a slideshow, just showing, because I don't like taking off my hat. It just reveals the mess that I have of a hair underneath. So I just wanted to show you guys a little bit of some photos I actually took these photos this morning when I was preparing for the show. So pardon any kind of mess. These weren't really staged completely great, but you know what? We're lo-fi, and we're a family here, so you guys can forgive me for not having a professional studio here. So this is just a little front shot here. This is kind of like a standard fedora. There's nothing like really wild. Obviously, you can see the teardrop in this overhead. I did notice some of the dust, so I took a brush to this before I got on the live, because I noticed the pictures showed a lot more dust, and I was like, oh man, I gotta take care of you, Stetson. It looks like you gathered a little bit of dust, and luckily, as far as I know, that diffuser is working, because I didn't see any moth bites. I believe Kevin mentioned that moths prefer a certain felt color. I'm trying to remember if it was dark. I believe that moths favor dark felts versus light felts, but I might have mixed that up. If you guys are seeing this, and if you remember Kevin talking about the fact that moths prefer lighter versus darker versus lighter felts, or the other way around. You guys can correct me. But maybe that's one thing I'll make sure Kevin covers when we have him on the show or I'm on his show. But yeah, this is just a very standard Stetson Downs. Again, a modern. You can see the shape. It has a classic fedora shape. Just a very good looking hat. Really, really, really sharp looking hat. But again, also kind of like an every hat, right? I believe like if you see some of Paul's creations, he has a lot of his hats are shaped this way. It's just a classic design. I don't know what makes the fedora Downs, like the Stetson Downs, the Downs, right? Meaning what about this fedora makes it a Downs versus another Stetson like that, but because the teardrop shape is classic, everything here for me, including the color, screams classic, right? And maybe, like I said, maybe a Stetson expert. Morgan knows more about Stetson than I do. So maybe she can chime in here at some point. But yeah, I just wanted to show a little bit of the hat. This is kind of a little top view. Ian says self-defense. Moss know they will be seen on a light surface. Yes, there you go. There you go. So that means I was initially correct, probably. So what Ian's saying is that I think Ian is confirming what I mentioned, which is, moths prefer darker felts because, well, they are, they are less likely to be detected on a darker felt. I feel like that's fascinating, right? Even if you don't know anything or care about that, you got to think it's a little fascinating that moths had the wherewithal, right? That adaptation. That they're like, no, I'm not going to go and get smashed on chewing on this light mist color felt. I like to think for me, my personal, my wacky brain likes to think that moths know because they're like, oh yeah, I don't bother the light color felts because I like that color better, right? I go after the dark felts because you know what, that's, or maybe it tastes better, right? Maybe the dark, maybe the coloring that maybe is used in the felt, I don't know. Maybe it just tastes better to the moth, right? Or what Ian says, maybe they know better. They've learned, they've adapted over time to say, I'm more likely to die, and get smashed by a furious hat owner, furious hat nerd if I go after the light felts. So let me stick to these dark felts. I don't know. They're probably all correct, to be honest. Right? It could be a combination of all of those. But thank you, Ian. I appreciate the tidbit. So yeah, just showing a little bit of the inside of the hat. You can see it's pretty darn new already. Like, right? I got this hat pretty much brand new, and it was given to me brand new. And you can see it even has the original tag here. It's again just a modern Stetson. Black sweatband and essentially just a standard Stetson, right? Nothing woman about this. There's a little bit of a close-up. It's a size 58. That just happens to be just I think I'm somewhere between a 57. Ian says they lay eggs. The ones that hatch eat your hat, etc. Yes, that's what I heard as well. Moths are very. I actually have one hat that's a little bit more moth bitten. I feel like I should just get rid of it. Maybe I will. Maybe I'll give that out. I don't know. If anybody interested in a moth, I'll probably do that and just have you cover shipping. If anybody's interested in, if I have any new hat folks, that's what I'm going to do. If you're a new hat person and you don't currently own a hat, drop me a line either on Facebook or a message. And if you're willing to cover the shipping for me to get it out to you, I'll just give you that hat. It's a Knox hat. You know what? Let me go bring that hat. Actually, you know what? Let me finish the slideshow. I'll bring that hat later. I just don't want to. You know what? Let me go find it and I'll have it nearby. Excuse me for 1 second. Okay, so this is the hat, but I'll show you once I'm done with the slideshow. The only thing I'll require is, besides the shipping, and I hate to be a stickler, but if you are a subscriber, I'm going to give preference to a subscriber Right. So if you subscribe and you do that, I feel like that's gonna, again, I don't know, it's got some moth bites, but as far as I know, it doesn't have any moth eggs. But if you're willing to take that chance, it's just a hat that I don't wear that often because it's really moth bitten. It's not terrible. It's a pretty good hat. I'll show you that in a second. Once I'm done with the slideshow. But this is kind of just the hat here. You can see here Stetson Downs. It's a 7¼ inch. It actually has a 2 3/8 inch brim. So there you go, black in color. There you go, the Royal Stetson. The classic symbol. And we talked about the logo here, right? We talked about the Stetson logo here with the beaver, and I believe it's the bird. If you are a vintage hat nerd, right? And I mentioned this before, but I'll repeat myself. At some point, the logo here transitioned. I want to say it was sometime in the 50s, but I could be wrong. Sometime in the 50s, Stetson decided to change their logo. Right here, it's like a little, in the shield, it's a little maple leaf, right? If you look at a Stetson from before the 1950s, it's more likely to have stars here, right? So it shifted sometime in the 50s. Again, somebody can correct me on that. I believe it's the 50s. I got that information from Publius Forum, I believe it's called. And it's a neat indicator to kind of let you know another clue in terms of how old your Stetson is. And what happened was they started off with a bunch of stars here and then eventually moved to a maple leaf. And I don't know the exact story for why that happened, but my assumption is that maybe, just maybe, Stetson decided to open up maybe a factory or some sort of location in Canada. Maybe they moved production from the U.S. to Canada. I don't know. I don't know the answer to that, but it's reasonable that they decided to do that. We know that a lot of hat brands will do that. They will alter their logo to kind of signify and represent the various aspects of the business. And maybe, just maybe, that logo moved from stars, which I typically connote with America, to a maple leaf, which I connote with Canada, because there was some sort of production or some sort of change that happened with Stetson, the Stetson company, and they decided to pay homage to Canada. Again, that's all I got. That's mostly speculation. Besides the fact that there was an actual shift, that shift happened. Everything else is my opinion and speculation. You guys can maybe do that detective work for yourselves and then report back, right? Let me know. Luke, I went and I looked, maybe tomorrow, if we come back tomorrow for Hat Chat number 25, you can let me know, hey, Luke, I looked it up and either you were right or you were dead wrong. And this is why that actually happened. I'd love to know that, to be honest. Just the nerd in me it wants to know that. So yeah, as per usual, you can see some of this stuff. The reason, again, I'm going to reiterate this. The reason why I go and I make such a big deal about Stetson is not because I think Stetson is the end all and be all, right? It's just that John B. Stetson was one of the, like I said, in my Mount Rushmore, John B. Stetson would be right there in the middle sandwiched between Ezra Mallory, and John Kavanaugh, right? In like that list of iconic, right? And there's a case to be made for the two Charleses, right? Charles Knox and Charles Dobbs, right? Also very iconic figures in the U.S. hat industry. Also Robert D. Knox, who was he was the one that used to work at Knox, right? He's no relation to Charles Knox, but Robert D. Knox he started off as, I believe, an apprentice or a worker at Knox Hats, and then left to start his own business, and then ended up starting Dunlap, right? And the nice thing is, John Kavanaugh eventually took over all those brands, right? John Kavanaugh created Hat Corporation of America, which took over, eventually acquired Dobbs, Knox, Dunlap. They had Berg, Crowfoot, and Knapp was, I believe, the predecessor of Hat Corporation of America. So John Kavanaugh, I always pay homage to John Kavanaugh, but Before Kavanaugh was John B. Stetson. Before Stetson was Ezra Mallory, and Mallory is like the first really recognizable U.S. hat brand. And then even before Mallory, there was a gentleman, I believe his name was Zadok Benedict. I could be wrong on that, but I believe his name was Zadok Benedict, who's known and widely considered the very first U.S. hatter. And he set up shop. He didn't have a brand per se, but he set up shop around 1780. Yeah, so just to give you a little bit of history, right? And I usually like to go chronological. So history and legacy of the Stetson Hat Company. Founder John Batterson Stetson, born 1830 from a hat making family in New Jersey. Shout out to New Jersey. So if you have New Jersey has kind of a little rivalry going with New York and Philadelphia. But if you guys want a little bit of piece of the hat history, you can have as your claim to fame that John B. Stetson was actually not born in Philadelphia, which maybe I believed before, but he actually was born in New Jersey. So shout out to New Jersey. Really, I also have family in New Jersey, and I love New Jersey. Even though I was born and raised in New York, besides being a fan of Sopranos, obviously that put Jersey on the map as well. But New Jersey, very rich history, lots of great family and friends from New Jersey. And now John Batterson Stetson, the Stetson, was actually born in New Jersey. I don't know whereabouts, but that's something that you can look up. After an ill-fated Western journey, he crafted the Boss of the Plains, a high-crowned, wide-brimmed, waterproof felt hat inspired by the practical needs of frontier life. Shout out to my cowboys out there that still rock a Boss of the Plains. It is an iconic hat. Company birth in 1865. Wow, right around the Civil War era, he established the John B. Stetson Company in Philadelphia to mass produce this innovative design. The Boss of the Plains quickly became synonymous with the cowboy hat. Synonymous so strongly that Stetson nearly became interchangeable with hat in the American West. And rise to dominance. Stetson's marketing strategy, send sample hats west with order forms. This sparked massive orders, leading to rapid expansion. By 1886, the company was the world's largest hat manufacturer, with production reaching nearly 2 million hats annually by 1906. The Philadelphia factory by 1915 covered 9 acres, spanning 25 buildings, employing some 5,400 workers and churning out 3.3 million hats per year. Wow, that's a lot of hats. Geez, that's a lot of workers, a lot of hats. It goes to show you the scale that Stetson reached as they peaked, right? We're talking about a massive company, massive company, and one that happens to exist still today. Labor innovations and worker welfare. Stetson infused progressive paternalism into operations. Wow. Shout out to my my leadership folks out there. I study organizational behavior. The paternal leader is a style of leadership that is it's very much considered old school, right? Kind of like the Warren Buffett type, the lovable grandpa that leads the company. We know now that women have risen the corporate ranks, and rightfully so, and they're running companies, right? So this idea of the paternal leadership is a little bit archaic, but doesn't mean we don't still study it. It looks like John B. Stetson was very much an exemplar of the paternal leadership style. So housing assistance via building and loan association, health dispensary turned a hospital, a library, a Sunday school, an auditorium, dental care, and holiday gifts. A genuinely supportive environment. Wow, it looks like John B. Stetson was ahead of his time in terms of how to treat his employees. Shout out to him and his legacy. And Americanization classes helped waves of immigrant hatters from Italy acclimate and become naturalized. Wow. It's just something that I never really knew about John B. Stetson, and kind of makes me respect him a whole lot more in his legacy. Here, cultural, symbol, and iconic wearers worn by legendary figures and institutions, including Buffalo Bill Cody, Calamity Jane, Tom Mix, the Lone Ranger, the Texas Rangers, U.S. Cavalry, the National Park Service, and even presidents like Lyndon B. Johnson and others. Wow, that's a feather in the cap. Not a feather in their hat, in Stetson's hat. No pun intended. Pun obviously intended. The Stetson became a Hollywood staple, framing the cowboy mythos in cinema and Western culture. Hat wearing fell out of favor in the 1950s to the 1960s, causing a steep decline. Revenues fell from 29 million down to 8 million in 1968. That's a pretty steep drop. Wow, that's a serious drop. Wow, that's kind of a quarter, right? Revenues fell by a quarter. No, sorry, more than that. Sorry, my math is not mathing today, but that's kind of like a 75% drop, I want to say, in revenue. Whatever, you guys know math. You guys can do that math for me, but that's a steep drop in revenue. Wow. The Philadelphia factory finally ceased operations by 1971, and most buildings were demolished. Those that remained succumbed to the fire in 1980. I remember reading about that before, about the big fire in 1980. Production resumed under license in the 1980s, with Hatco in Garland, Texas, taking over manufacturing Stetson branded hats. I'm going to cover Hatco here soon. Not here right now, but I will cover Hatco because that's a really integral part, an important part of U.S. hat history, but not today. Today's Stetson. Current manufacturing takes place in Texas with Hatco. Again, I'll cover that in the future. Some styles still echo the original boss of the plains. Yeah, shout out to the boss of the plains. I see many great examples of that on the Fedora Lounge. Iconic Stetson brand hat. Stetson offers over 100 hat varieties, including fedoras, straw hats, caps, and more across both Western and urban aesthetics. Their craftsmanship remains high-end, starting from raw furs, beaver, mink, and chinchilla, processed into felt, with much hand detailing reflected in the pricing. Stetson's Western heritage endures as a fashion and lifestyle icon, celebrated for its blend of function and myth in modern style. Yeah, I think anybody that knows, you don't need to know anything about hats to know the name Stetson. And I just shared a little bit of history here. Apparently, Stetson University, which I knew of, but I didn't know was connected to John B. Stetson, actually has a tie. So I'm going to read here just a little bit here, and you guys can kind of look up this on your own. But Stetson University in DeLand, Florida, was originally founded in 1883 as DeLand Academy by Henry Addison DeLand, a wealthy New York baking soda magnate who had moved to Florida. John B. Stetson, already a nationally famous hat manufacturer by then, was introduced to DeLand in the mid-1880s. Stetson became deeply interested in the school and its mission. And in 1889, Stetson donated a large sum of money, including funding for new buildings, faculty salaries, student scholarships. His support was so transformative that the trustees renamed the institution Stetson University in his honor. Remember, I talked about the fact that I happen to personally believe that money is not the root of all evil, right? Money does not make you a jerk or a bad person. Jerks behavior makes them a bad person. So if you are a jerk to begin with, and you get money, and you get a lot of money, you're going to be just a bigger jerk, right? Money's a magnifier. But you look and see what money can do when it's in the right hands. Stetson created a legacy here, and he actually did so many great things with his company and for for education. Ian says cowboy hats are often called Stetsons in the UK. Most don't realize they also make fedoras, etc. That's correct. I think a lot of people know Stetson as the cowboy hat, right? I am not wearing a cowboy hat. This is very much a fedora. And it goes to show you that, like I said, sometimes it's kind of like when Xerox, right? Xerox was a company in upstate New York that innovated the Xerox copy, right? The Xerox copy machine. And then now when other manufacturers would came out with their copy machines, everybody knew that, oh, that's a Xerox machine. I was like, well, no, actually, it's not made by Xerox, so it can't be a Xerox machine. But because they innovated in that space, they became synonymous with the Xerox machine, or with the copy machine. I think the same thing happened with Stetson. They became so iconic in the hat industry, especially the Western hat industry, that they essentially became synonymous with the cowboy hat. Right? They were the cowboy hat. Right? So there's a lot more information here. But I want to talk about John B. Stetson's generosity extended beyond hats and universities. He was also a major benefactor of churches, hospitals, and social programs, much like the paternalistic support he built into his Philadelphia hat factory community. Shout out to John B. Stetson. Wow. Today, Stetson University still proudly honors him as its namesake, and his personal commitment to education is a central part of the school's identity. Wow, what a tremendous legacy. It says Stetson himself had wintered in Florida near the land where he built the famous Stetson Mansion, and it's still standing today. That's part of what drew him to support the academy in the first place. Ian says here, modern films rightly show that people in the Old West wore all sorts of hats, not just cowboy hats. Very, very true, Ian. Again, it's one of those things where, like, sometimes perception becomes reality with a lot of folks. Again, it's one of those things where, like, people back then were also individuals, right? You got to imagine that just like now, you got people that, would favor a fedora but won't wear a Western hat, and vice versa. They'll wear a Western hat and won't favor a fedora. It's choice is good, right? Like, we talked about the paradox of choice, and sometimes how choice is not good. But in this case, it's when choice is definitely good. And this is just a little bit tidbit about the Stetson Mansion. I won't go into it in too detail, but you can always stop and pause here and maybe magnify this on your phone if you want to read it, or you can go into ChatGPT and just re-dig it up. But I thought it was really interesting that about this mansion. It was his winter retreat. We're talking about 10,000 square feet, and originally on a 300-acre estate. This is like, it just shows you that Stetson was a real force, and he had a lot of bucks, right? He was very much a magnate from selling hats, right? It's like, if you're in the hat business like Paul or Kevin, it goes to show you that at the very highest level, what you can do here in this hat business. And I think that's really impressive, right? Obviously, it's a little more difficult now because hats aren't as widely worn and appreciated now as it was back in Stetson's heyday. But it doesn't mean that you can't make a decent living for yourself, or at least, even if you can't make a living out of it, you can't make a little bit of side income to kind of supplement and then share your passion for hats. Shout out to Paul and PJ Murphy and Son, and also shout out to to Kevin at KTG Hats. Paul's already been on the show. Kevin will be on the show at some point. I'll also be on his show. Same with Paul. Paul, if you ever want me on your channel, I'm more than happy to do that, especially since you've already given so much of your time. Ian said, modern films rightly show that people. Oh, sorry. Yeah, I think I've already mentioned that comment. I might have just repeated myself, but yeah. If you missed it, modern films rightly show that people in the Old West wore all sorts of hats, not just cowboy ones. Correct. So yeah, moving on. Later history, after Stetson's death in 1906, the estate passed through various owners. Over the years, parts of the property were sold off, and the mansion fell into some disrepair. It remains a private residence, but was eventually restored. So that's nice to know. Today, the Stetson Mansion is fully restored and is on the National Register of Historic Places. It is privately owned but open for guided tours. Wow, that's something I'm going to have to remember when I'm in that neck of the woods in Florida. Shout out to DeLand, Florida. It looks like you are able to tour the Stetson Mansion. Good on those owners for opening that up. The mansion is especially famous for holiday decorations, making it one of Florida's top-rated Christmas attractions. It is often called Florida's first mansion and remains one of the few surviving Gilded Age estates in the state. So the Stetson Mansion, together with his hat empire, his philanthropy at Stetson University, and his role in bringing wealth, style, and modernity to Florida in the late 19th century. Shout out to John B. Stetson. What a legacy. And if you want, this is something that ChatGPT also kind of provides. I just want to flash it up here. That way you guys can either take a screenshot, or you can pause the video here if you kind of want to get a nice little summary timeline of the Stetson up to when it got founded in 1865, all the way to the modern day Hatco Stetson timeline. And that way you got to get a little bit more of the history. I'm going to stop sharing this right now. And hopefully you get to see my ugly mug back on the screen and full screen. That was a little bit of the presentation that I had set up for today. Wow, what a man, right? John B. Stetson. Again, I'll reiterate this for those that haven't joined us. John B. Stetson is part of my Mount Rushmore. Obviously, he's like, everybody knows John B. Stetson. They know the name Stetson, even if they don't know John B. Stetson. But hopefully you learned a little bit about John Stetson, the man, John Stetson, the philanthropist, just an all-around great person, but happened to be a great hat person. So I feel like folks like Paul, folks like Kevin are really in keeping with the tradition of John B. Stetson, the spirit of John B. Stetson. And again, if I had to do the Mount Rushmore right now, this instant, I do Zadok Benedict. I'll do Ezra Mallory Sr., John B. Stetson, and right next to him, John Kavanaugh. Right. And again, if I had to expand that, I'd include the two Charleses, Charles Dobbs and Charles Knox. Maybe I'll talk about them more in a future video. I'll also talk about Hatco. I'll also talk about Resistol. I'll cover eventually all, only because I love learning about this, and hopefully you guys do as well. Before I forget, I'm going to talk about this hat. So I'm trying to reach 50 subscribers. What I'll do is this hat, if I get 50 subscribers on here, I will give away this hat to a subscriber. All you have to do is pay in shipping, right? Because obviously I have subscribers from all over the world. But maybe you don't like this hat. It's a Knox. It is a vintage Knox hat that I bought on my hat journey. I saw this in the shop. It is a Knox. It is a 7 1/4. It is a Knox. Let's see. I don't think I know what kind of Knox this is, but it's interesting, right? This happens to be what I do know. It has this rope, right? You guys know that I'm not a big fan of that rope, but I'm also not a big fan of the Western style. So you guys can easily change this if you like. I'm not going to do that because, again, this is the way the hat came to me. This is how I bought it. But I will give away this hat if somebody's interested and it fits them, or maybe somebody that really wants a fine hat. I will give away this to my after I get 50 subscribers. I don't know how I'll do this. Either I'll choose somebody or that's worthy, or I'll do it at random, right? What I'll do is maybe at some point, I'll create a video where you guys can comment, right? Maybe you'll need to drop a comment so that I create anybody that subscribes and drops a comment on one of my future videos, or after I hit the 50 subscriber mark, and then as long as they pay for shipping and I get their address, I will give away this Knox fedora that has Canadian roots. I don't know if that means anything to anybody. But it looks like one of those, it almost looks like a Tyrolean hat, right? We talked about the Austrian German hats, the Tyrolean style. It looks like an Alpine hat, to be honest. It's kind of a trilby style. It's very much kind of a hat, I want to say, out of the 60s. So that way you can kind of see it's a Knox. Like, I covered my Knox Tom and Jerry here. This hat, I will not give away this hat. Like, I'm probably never going to give away this hat. So hopefully, if that doesn't bother anybody, this is my Knox Tom and Jerry that I got from Kevin Gerber. I love this hat way too much. But this hat has a few moth bites. As far as I know, it does not have any kind of moth eggs. I haven't seen any new bites. I brushed it, and it just sits on my kind of hat collection, not really being worn. But maybe what I'll do is I'll create a video, like future hat chat, Once I hit 50 subscribers, I'll create a future hat chat video wearing this hat. I don't know how often I've even worn this hat, but I'll wear this hat. And then anybody that is a subscriber and comments to that video will have a chance to be randomly drawn to win this hat. Again, as long as I don't give it away before that, right? If I find a worthy person that to give away the hat to, then I'll do that. Ian says, looks like the Bavarians wore in the 80s. Yeah, agreed. It very much looks like a Bavarian style hat, Alpine. I like to call them Alpine hats or maybe a Tyrolean. Obviously, it's very much a trilby style. But if you like this hat and you're a subscriber, then and you keep tuning in and you have any interest, I'd love to be able to give it away to a good home, right? I mean, we talked about rehoming hats. I unfortunately or fortunately have way more hats than I know what to do with. And this is one that just doesn't get worn off. You know, I know why I bought it because it was a Knox and it was a vintage and it just caught my eye. I did see kind of like you see some of the moth bites here, right? You can see that it was well bitten. And again, I know a lot of folks don't like buying moth bitten hats, but hopefully the price is right? Hopefully the price is right. And you're able to win this lovely hat. And maybe if you don't want to wear it, maybe you have a mate or a friend that really wants a hat. Maybe you can measure it out. This, I don't know. I haven't taken a set of measurements to this, but it says it's a 7 1/4, which is a very kind of accessible size. It happens to be my size. But again, I don't wear this hat very often. So if you think that you would want this hat, keep tuning in and subscribe, right? Now you got a reason to subscribe besides supporting the channel. And maybe you could take this hat, maybe you can get a personal delivery, right? I'll send this via probably post office or UPS or whatever the most reasonable way to get you this hat. Again, if I send it via USPS, and I'll probably try to send out priority. So I'll probably ask you to cover priority shipping. And I think that gives you $100 of insurance. That way, if something happens to it and doesn't make it way, maybe you can claim the insurance, or maybe we'll just split the insurance. I don't know. We'll figure it out. Like I said, I don't have this all thought out and detailed, but I do want to give this hat a very new home, and hopefully it's a much better home than I've given it so far. And maybe you can jump on the show and show me your hat, right? Show me your new to you Good Luke special. And maybe we'll give away something else at the 100 subscriber mark, right? So I just want to give have us kind of exchange here. Let's see, might be able to sand off the bites. Yeah, Ian. Like I said, if maybe Ian is going to be the winner of this hat because Ian is a subscriber. Ian happens to be a moderator. I will allow my moderators to win this hat. I just care about them way too much to not include them in this. Plus, they're like my most loyal watchers. Like, how can I not reward that? So what I'll probably do is, like I said, in a future hat chat, once I get 50 subscribers, and maybe that'll happen sooner, right? Maybe you guys can help me if you're watching this right now. Help me get to 50 subscribers. And then what I'll do is as soon as I hit the 50 subscriber mark, as long as it's not something, I don't have something else planned, I will put out a hat chat featuring this Knox Trilby hat that looks very much like an Alpine hat. And I will just say, if you comment on there right after the show, if you comment during the show or after the show, or I don't know, I'll have to kind of figure out, maybe it'll have to be during the show, because I have to make sure that I have a cutoff period. So I'll figure that out. I'll give it a little bit more thought on how to do that. I'll commiserate with my board of directors. That includes you, Ian, obviously, because you're on the group chat with my board of directors, and then we'll figure out a good way to give away this hat and rehome this hat. Okay, so that's it. That's all the show I have for you guys today. I thank you for rocking with me on Hat Chat number 24. The big 24. I mean, tomorrow will be the big 25. We'll hit the quarter century mark in terms of hat chats. And like I mentioned here, all I really want for you guys is to hit that like and subscribe button to support me, support Kevin Gerber and his channel, and his hat line, support Paul and his channel, his Passion for Hats, a YouTube channel, as well as his business, PJ Murphy and Son. And then hopefully come back to me with me tomorrow. If I'm able to do this tomorrow for Hat Chat number 25, I'm hoping to see you guys either live or in the comments, right? I try to read the comments. If you happen to watch these videos after I go live and you want to post a comment and you want to let me know what you think of the show. Let me know what you think of me. Hopefully you're nice and you're like, well, Luke, you're not much to look at, but you know what? Despite that, your channel's all right. Whatever. Give me some feedback and interact with me in either live or not live. And regardless, even if you don't do that, even if you never do that once, you don't subscribe, you never like any of my videos, you can do me one little favor. Stay hatting, my friend. Have a great day. Ciao.